Hey, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting our students to learn what we teach. And I am Rob Alvarez. I'm the founder of Professor Game and professor of gamification and games-based solutions at IE Business School, EFMD, EBS University, and many other places around the world. And if this content is for you, then please go ahead and subscribe to our email list for free at professorgame.com/subscribe. Hey, engagers, and welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game podcast. And we have a very special guest, as always, with us. And this time it is Eko. But Eko, we need to know before we start, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, Rob, I would be happy to engage.
Amazing. Good stuff. Good to have you here, Eko. We met a while ago, and I recently realized we hadn't had this conversation, so I was keen to get you on the podcast after meeting on Gamification Europe, which is also coming up. Well, by the time this comes out, I'm not sure if it's coming up or already happened. But anyways, Gamification Europe is just around the corner. So that reminded me of the interest I had in having a conversation with you. Eko, we
Thank you,
need to
thank
know
you,
that you're
thank you.
engaged. You are engaged. So let's look into who is Eko Nugroho. Nugroho, is that well?
Yes, just call me
Okay,
Eko
so
Nugroho.
Eko Nugroho has been at the forefront of driving implementation of games-based learning and gamification in Indonesia over the past 14 years. And alongside his team at Kumara.com, Eko has offered consultancy and advisory services in the realm of serious, meaningful games and interactive learning to various companies and organizations. And additionally, he serves as an advisory board member at the Ludere Nusantara Foundation, ludenara.org, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting teachers in implementing game-based learning programs and enhancing the overall quality of education throughout Indonesia. He's also a distinguished gamification expert and has been recognized as a finalist for the Gamification World Award. He's also widely acclaimed as an international speaker, where he's presented in events, as I mentioned before, as Gamification Europe. He's also on Gamicon48V US and the Connected Learning Summit at MIT, among many others. But Eko, we've said plenty of good stuff about you. Is there anything
Thank you.
that we're missing that you want to mention before we start on this podcasting journey of the day?
No, I think you already mentioned a lot or even too many. Thank you, Rob.
Fantastic.
I love to have very good coffee and toast. That's something important to say also.
I know in Indonesia you have great coffee as well, right?
Yes, our coffee is amazingly tasteful. You should.
It's nice to encounter somebody who also knows how to appreciate. I'm not a super, I don't drink a lot of coffee. Don't get me wrong. There's people who have 2, 3 coffees a day. I have maybe a couple of coffees a week, so not too many. But when I do, I like to have good coffee. I don't just drink anything. I like my good coffee. So
Visit
hopefully
us
you're
in Bandung in Indonesia. I will brew some for you then later on.
amazing. Good stuff. I recently discovered the cold brewing, which brings out some very interesting notes in coffee as well. Less of the acidity. There's something else that is less, then it's not so good. And it has been a good experience for me as well. I don't know if you've ever tried that, Echo.
I think we should stop here. Otherwise, we can speak about coffee for the whole night, isn't it?
You're right. You're absolutely right. So, Echo, your day probably starts with coffee or not. That's up to you. But we want to know what your day looks like. We want to sort of be in your shoes for a bit and understand what are you doing these days.
Okay, I begin my day usually with a prayer because I mean in Indonesia majority is Muslim and also myself. So we woke up around like 4:30 in the morning and start with a prayer. And me myself follow by a brief meditation usually. And after that, I quick check my calendar. Otherwise, Augie, my team will be very upset with me if I forget my schedule. And then after that, I love to have my morning reading. When I read in the morning several page of book or paper, and usually also continue it to have like small discussion with my wife. And then after that, our family enjoy breakfast around 7 a.m. with my doctor. I have a very lovely doctors. And after breakfast, we do morning exercise. We love to walk, jogging, or swimming. And usually we spend some time after, I mean, until 9 in the morning. Afterward, my wife, daughter, and I each focus on our individual tasks. We work from anywhere, basically, most of the time. And we usually wrap up our work by 5 or 6 p.m. We have this rule that we need to shutting down our laptop by 5 or at very late at 6 p.m. And evening consists of either dining out or having dinner at home. And continue my books or paper. And usually we have 2 episodes of kid series or anime with my daughter before then we go to bed around 9 p.m. So that's my working days. And on the weekend, we often go for camping trips. If we're not going for camping, we have brunch at our favorite restaurant and followed by some quality movie and game time usually. So that's my day basically.
Amazing. It looks like you have plenty of things and it's very structured. There's plenty of people who like to have structured days, and that is amazing. It works for you, I'm guessing. So keep at it. Meditations, it sounds like a very good way to start the day, amongst other very good things as well, Echo. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody wants to structure their day, that is a very good example of some of the things you could be doing for sure. So, Echo, let's dive into story mode at this point. We want to know, and we go all in always like this. We want to know
Mm,
of your favorite fail or first attempt in learning, especially, of course, in the world of game based learning, gamification, and so on. We want to be there with you, be at the ground level, in the trenches with you, fighting that war that you were fighting against wherever you were not actually able to reach at that point. We want to take those lessons. We want to be there with you. And of course, we are aware of the NDA. So if you don't want to name any names, that
mm.
is perfectly fine. We're more interested in the experience and the story than anything else.
Okay, this is one interesting question really. Honestly, I failed a lot, so I'm not sure where to start. If you need me to choose one as my favorite, I don't think I want to choose any of them as my favorite. But anyway, one particular failure did serve as a significant stepping stone for our program right now. And words of proud is not really really on point with this, but let me start the story anyway. So the story started when we had the pandemic at the beginning of the pandemic. The pandemic, yeah. What we did earlier, basically, we are consulting firm for many corporation and organization, and we usually do like boutique style consultation, which means that if you have a company or organization and you want to use a game as tools for learning, then use very special design program, and most of the program before the pandemic is like offline in class directly. At the beginning of the pandemic, we need to redesign our game-based learning program to function entirely online. And from 2002 up to 2010, I was in Germany for my study and some works. I remember the time in 2002 when I arrived in Germany for the first time, I had like my internet connection in my apartment like 100 megabytes per second. So when I back to Indonesia in 2010, our internet connection speed is still less than 10 megabytes. Now it's better, honestly, but during the pandemic, our internet speed is like 10 to 20 megabytes per second. So we need to redesign our game-based learning program to function entirely online. So with whatever limitation we have, we try to redesign everything, think through what kind of platform that we can use. And honestly, we worked quite hard to design it. And an opportunity emerged when one of our partner company expressed interest in implementing the program. Honestly, at that point, that was very elite program. That was for their executive learning initiative. And the participants are their senior leaders. So for us, that was a tremendous opportunity. And we already designed what we call multiplayer digital board game that capable of accommodating 8 to 16 players. And we designed because of some limitation, but we're really proud at the time because I think we found a way to design what we call a large group multiplayer game. So we test the game and the overall learning program, and our confidence was high that everything would run smoothly, honestly. And our partner is one of the biggest company anyway in Indonesia. So we set up our team at the most sophisticated place to make sure the internet connection and everything work well. Because our partner company is also one respectable company, so we don't think there will be any connection or any technical difficulty. So we are ready to go. When the program starts, I eagerly explain everything. I'm really proud with the program and the game. And we used Zoom at that time. And then I eagerly share the game links and log in, because the idea is that every participant can just jump in, log into the game, and then we can engage together in the game. But then issues arose. I mean, some participants reported difficulty joining the game. So start like one participant, this is one senior leader, he said that, Eko, I don't think I can log into the game. He said, I said, what? I don't have any problem. And then followed by the others. And then we have like 20 participants. Only two of them can log into the game.
Wow.
So imagine that, yeah, you have 20 senior leaders. After like 15 minutes, you claim this is going to be the first pilot of multiplayer game-based learning program, the first in Indonesia, and etc. etc. And suddenly, 18 senior leader cannot log into the game. I said, okay, wait. And then I'm start to sweating, and
Yikes.
then imagine that you have almost 10 years of experience facilitating learning, and that was awful. And then I said, okay, sir, can you share your screen? I said, and then, okay. And then one of the most senior leaders shared his screen. And I realized at that time that our gaming platform that we use at that time was blocked by the company network.
Oh, goodness.
Because this is, I mean, I can mention, this is like a banking company. This is banking, so they have very tight
Yeah,
security.
strong security and stuff.
Oh God, so nice. I mean, so I think even more, my team look at me and okay, but the first thing I know about facilitating game listening is that you need to project confidence. But at that time, I'm not sure I'm really projecting confidence. Okay. Anyway, did I stress out? Absolutely. However, after some, I don't know what really happened. I'm just quite a blank at that time, but I quickly adapted. I thinking, I'm like, okay, I think I can running the game myself. I said, and then asking the participant just to provide their instructions, where they want to go and what they want to move. And fortunately, our game was turn-based, and it's possible to do that. We designed the game basically turn-based,
Huh.
group points, and the participant also already in groups, which basically is the situation. So we proceed with the game and the session. While it went reasonably well, the technical problem and my initial stress likely made it one of my less optimal session, I think, if I cannot say my worst session. So did I fail to deliver an optimal session? Yes, absolutely. That was one of the worst. However, that experience become very valuable learning opportunity for me and my team.
Of course.
Honestly, it's inspired us to develop what we call now a facilitated game-based learning sessions. So this is a game-based learning session that fully facilitated by capable facilitator, and the participant don't need to access the game by themselves. And we also design a very specific facilitation protocols. And we also refine our game design approach to ensure that all of our facilitated game-based learning program optimize the experience for both the participant and the facilitator. And the rest is history, basically. We have successfully conducted facilitated game-based learning session for major corporation and organization in Indonesia. And basically that what I said last time in Gamification Europe. And additionally, we have developed a social program to assist teachers in implementing
Okay,
this
but
concept.
I'm gonna pause you there because I love this story,
Yeah.
definitely. But maybe you want to get into that when we actually talk about a huge success, which I think is part of what you're talking about right now. And I wanted to dive deeper. So that's why I'm pausing you, especially
Mhm.
because I wanted to take a step back and say, look, You change the way that you do your game-based learning. But if you had to deliver something similar to what you were doing, the option of going for facilitation was maybe not there for whatever reason, or what other alternatives could somebody have? What are the things to think about when you face these kind of technology, connectivity, security issues? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I've been at that point of time. I'm not really thinking. Yeah, this is very hard question. No, I've never thought about it. Basically, I mean, the opportunity is there for me, and but if I need to redesign everything again, and at this point of time, we design multiple program both for facilitated and we call it unfacilitated. But my point talking about this approach is because this facilitated game-based learning program, at least for Indonesia, this is encompass a lot of things because by this approach we don't have any technical problem. We can also facilitate the session all over Indonesia with online, and we try to push the approach or a lot of other things. But now we have the technology is so much better now, and we have more access to a lot of things, and we have more experience. So we have, honestly, now we have a lot of more flexibility to develop whatever program that we love. So I hope we never face that kind of situation again.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that experience
Yeah, but
that
my
you
point is
shared.
that why I want to share this is because sometimes when we talk about game-based learning, I mean, you are in Europe. I mean, I would spend my time in Europe. I visit US. There is some research about learning culture. Yeah, so in Europe and US, you guys have very strong. Well, I mean, in the research it states that a very strong individual learning capability, which means that you guys have this strong point in learning individually, and most of the game-based learning literature is based on research in Europe and US. But if you look at our learning culture in Asia, especially in Indonesia, in the research state that our strong point in learning is basically communal learning. It doesn't mean that we cannot learn individually, no, but our strong point is communal learning, which means we are better and then we are more excited if we learn together. So this concept of facilitated game-based learning bring that into the point. So somehow we found this like magical formula how we can bring simple game-based learning approach into more audience with some technical limitation. And when we found that this work for the corporate level, we always think, I mean, me myself, I was thinking that teachers are the most important executive in the world. But if you compare the corporate learning program for executive in the corporation and the learning program for teacher or teacher training program, it's like heaven and earth. I mean, there are so many gaps. And so in Kumara, in my company, we always believe whatever we know it's work for the corporate sector, we need to bring it to the teacher because teachers are the most important executive in the world. So after we found out that we can develop this kind of facilitated game-based learning program, we work with a foundation. I mean, partially the foundation is founded also by me, but now it's like completely, I'm just like the advisor. I said, let's do this. I mean, and for the last 3 years, believe it or not, we engage with more than 80 schools all over Indonesia in 6 different cities, and we train more than 300. Even now, our alumni is more than 2,000 teachers. So they can use any existing game around us, around their environment to be used in the what we call classroom facilitated game-based learning. That's
Amazing.
all. No, that's. I'm not calling that my favorite failure because I don't want that to be happen again. But I think that something bring a lot of joy in the process. Yes.
Amazing. And I think definitely qualifies for one of those times when actually things went very, very well. So let's actually jump into a question because we want to sort of pick into your brains and see how these things work for you. We'd like to know of the process, the steps when you're coming up with game-based learning or gamified solutions. How do you
Hmm.
do it essentially? Do you have to come up with something new from scratch? What happens? Does it happen in your brain? How does your team organize? I don't know. What's the way in which this comes actually into fruition?
That's very interesting question. We try to formulate this in one of our programs. So basically, we have what we call game design program since 2014. We try to formulate this way of thinking. And I'm not saying we're already successful, but nowadays our recent approach is quite we have like significant improvement in the way we try to, how you call it, socialize or try to bring this process. We in Kumara we have what we call Kumara ADM process. ADM, the A is stand for after event, D is for delivery, and the M is for mechanics. So when we design a game-based learning and gamification program, first we need to prioritize understanding the program goal or objective or what we want to achieve after the event of the session. And then we need to determine the most effective delivery method, whether it should be like online, in class, or it's group or individual, should be synchronized or perhaps asynchronized. And after understanding that, then we can select the appropriate mechanics to convey the program. Now, the interesting part when we selecting the appropriate mechanics, basically, if we look all the game around us, we can use it, especially when we use our game-based learning protocol as facilitated game-based learning protocol. Because it's basically it's very flexible because the protocol state only three steps. We call it prologue and pre-play, which is opening. And then you do play or simulating. And then you do what we call post-play and epilogue or basically reflection or debriefing. So if you imagine that you can use any game by these three protocols to convey a lot of content or learning materials. But if you use this approach, this after event delivery and mechanic, then it's more complete, it's more holistic. So when we talk about designing a game-based learning program or gamification program, first we tell the participants or our partners. So let's look at this approach. Yeah. So think what is your goal, how you can deliver any program, and then try to engage with whatever gameplay or mechanics that you already know. Start with what you already know. And if you want more, then we can try to think it together. That's the simplified method to construct the program that we have. Of course, a lot of detail involved, especially when we work with the corporate sectors with different learning objectives, different participants. We should also take that into account this framework. And just to be noted, also the framework is basically inspired by the, I don't know whether you're familiar with this, the MDA framework presented by Robin Hanickel and Mark LeBlanc and Robert Duvek. They have a paper about it. You can just Googling it, this MDA game design framework, I believe. So that's it. I hope that gives some overview even.
I hadn't heard it before, to be honest. I'm going to look it up to
Yeah.
include
So
in
it's
the links
very,
for the
very
show notes.
classic paper. So in the game design, Robin Hanickel, Mike LeBlanc, and Robert Zubek have this what we call MDA framework. MDA consists of mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. So it's for me, it's
Oh,
very
okay, okay,
interesting
okay.
paper. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think I know what you mean now.
yeah. Okay. I hope that answers a bit. So because
Yes,
when
it
we talk
definitely
about
does. So
technical,
thank you for all those details and all that insight knowledge that you just gave us, Echo. And talking about insight knowledge, right? You've
Mm.
had, as we mentioned at the start, a lot of experience doing these things. So I'm sure you've ran into one, two, or probably more best practices. Can you tell us one of those? Like one thing that you say, well, do this and your gamified project or your game based learning is going to be at least a lot better than it was if you didn't do it.
Okay, this is, I mean, my team always remind me don't talk like with Echo about best practice because he can. Echo best practice is like 90 minutes of talk and 30 minutes of coffee. But anyway, I always believe that we need to design our game-based solution or game-based learning or gamification program based on three fundamental concepts. This is what I always ask my team to do. The first is simplicity. So simplicity, it's mean from every aspect. If you know the simple technology, then use it. I mean, still you need to prioritize the objective and so on. But start with the simple technologies. Start with the simplest process. Bring simplicity in every process. When you put the content, when you write down the narrative aspect or whatever, just start with simplicity. And the second fundamental aspect is, of course, interactivity. Now, when we talk about interactivity, people say every game is interactive, but we need to understand that there are a lot of interactivity in the game. First, the interaction between the player with the game itself. Okay, and then but if you design the game well, then you can have this interactivity between the players, the game, and another players. Now, if you design a bit even better, then you can bring interaction between the players, the game, the other players, and their way of thinking. So you need to know what kind of the interactivity that you want to bring into the game. And it's not only about bring mechanics, this system. No, no, it's just like what kind of interactivity, what kind, some people call it what kind of experience that you want to bring. For me, it's like what kind of interactivity that you want to bring to the game. So that's the second fundamental concept. It's like simplicity, then interactivity. Last but not
Absolutely.
least
Oh,
is
yeah. Okay. Go.
so, which means that you need to test it out whether it's effective. Doesn't matter you have simple, good interactivity, but at the end it's not effective to convey any message or any goal that you want to achieve, and it's not work well. So that three concept always: simplicity, interactivity, and effectivity. So I'm not sure that is best practice, but I think if we can deploy our program based on those three fundamental aspects, I think that's quite okay.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And now we have the quick fire questions. We
Mm.
have the first one is after hearing these questions and the interactivity in the podcast, is there somebody that comes to your head that you would say, well, I would like to hear this person answering those questions, a future guest for Professor Game?
So no, I can. I mean, I love to learn, but if I mean, I can recommend you your future guest. I think I believe having my mentor and partner Scott Osterwile from MIT Education Arcade as a guest on your podcast would be fantastic choice. Partly because I miss Scott, so so I think he's very well respected game designer and game based learning activist in the world. So I think
Amazing,
it's one
amazing.
of
If
the
you can
best
help
choice.
us get in contact, that would be
Yeah, well, that would
brilliant.
be yeah, that's really possible.
Amazing, amazing. And keeping up with the recommendations, what book would you recommend us if you had to say about one book?
Okay, one book is hard question. I love books, so I feel like you really have very hard question, bro. Why everything need to be one? Anyway, no, my point is that because since I'm married with my wife, we have this commitment, one book a month, each of us at least, and then now we have our doctor, so at least every month we have three books, at least every month. So, and we always choose our favorite
Sounds like a
book.
very good plan to have, to be honest.
Yeah, and we always choose our favorite book, so it doesn't make sense if you buy a book that you don't like. So anyway, if I need to recommend some books, okay, first book is from Scott anyway, and from Eric Klofter, Jason Hess, and Scott Osterwile, and also I believe Louis Rosenberg. I met all of them in MIT when I visited MIT in 2018. The book I believe are entitled Resonant Games. They have a long title of it. Wait. Resonant games design principle for learning games that connect heart, mind, and every day. So that's one I really enjoyed the book because Scott is one of the author, but indeed the book provides a very good perspective about how we should design and implement game-based learning program overall. So I recommend you to and everyone else who hear this podcast just to look for the book. And the good news is the book is basically also open access in MIT. So if you just like go to Resonant Games MIT open access, you can have each chapter of the book in open access, and you can also have it in Amazon anyway. But if I may, I also want to recommend honestly Think Again by Adam
Hmm.
Grant because I think it's very important for all of us work in the game-based learning and gamification or game in general to always think again our approach. And I think the book by Adam Grant really pointed out. And the last, anyway, you asked me one, so I give you bonus too. Yeah, so I love the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho because I think the context of the book is bring the whole idea about if you want something, the world will test you. So if we want to bring game, the best game in the world, so the world will test us anyway. So The Alchemist is one of the books that I really love too. So I can give you more 10 or 20. But I think that's
Amazing,
enough.
amazing. For now, we'll keep those three. I will jot down the first one you said as your favorite, and I'll put the
Yeah,
other two on the list as well,
yeah.
if that works for you. And we'll move on to the next one, which is actually about you, because we need to know, what is your superpower? That thing that makes you better, at least than most other people. What's that thing that you do at least better than most other people?
It's really a tough question. The reason is really tough because I believe my doctor and my wife possess more power than I do. So that's one reason why. I have no idea about my superpower, but I always said to at least to my team, and I really don't have time to think bad about others because I think I would more than happy to use my time to think about how can we make something better rather than to think about this guy is something like that. I don't really have time to think bad about others. It doesn't mean that I don't have anybody that's doing bad thing to me. No, no, I mean, but even though if there is somebody doing bad thing to me, I don't want to spend my time to think about that too much because I believe everybody do everything for good reason. And so that's one thing that I keep practicing at least until now. But if related with game-based learning and gamification, I don't know whether it's superpowers, but I have this my firm belief in the what we call transformative potential of games to address a lot of issues, also the global issues. Even more, I truly believe that game can play a vital role in solving the world problems. And I always said to everyone, I believe Indonesia is the best place to create game as solutions because I mentioned it also in Gamification Europe. We have all the world problems. So this is the best place to create game-based solutions. So you name it, we have all the problem that you have. So even more, yeah. So, so I don't know that superpower or not, but I'm living in the best country to create game as solution, and I truly believe. Even my wife called it, I just like blind love to the game. So I believe we can use game to solve any problem. That's it.
Hopefully, we can, or we can at least use those strategies to find those solutions.
No, that's why I recommend you The Alchemist. I believe because I believe I have a lot of problem along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you mentioned difficult questions before. Well, this one is going to be more difficult, and this time it is about the one game that you would call your favorite game. If I told you
Again,
what is your favorite game, what is your answer, Eko?
Rob, this is really hard. I learned game design and in Germany for like almost like 6 years, 7 years. So when I went back to Indonesia, we bring like more than 300 collection of board games from Germany. But I fall in love in game through, I don't know whether you know it, it's Catan, the board games. Yeah, so Catan. It's a German board game called, I don't know the spelling, Catan. In German we call it Catan. So
Yes,
because
I'm sure
the
most of the
game,
audience is familiar with Catan for
yes,
sure.
yes, because the game is literally changed my life. It's the game that opened my eyes about how game can be designed and can bring a lot of joy. So I love Catan if I need to put one. But me myself, because I have this, I mean, I practice it quite a lot. Is I usually install at least like 10 or 20 games in my phone and my laptop and I play all of them in the weekend and then I install whatever I don't think is bring some joy. So, and I saw, but as I love several mobile and PC games, especially the city building games and strategic one. And I should mention also Civilization series is amazing as a digital game and
But
some of
do we keep Catan or do we keep Civilization? Which one do we keep, Eko?
I cannot keep. Can I keep two of them? and another one is not because my daughter play Roblox, so I bounded to say I love Roblox. You cannot force me to choose because I bounded by situation to fall in love to Roblox. So yes, Catan, Civilization, and Roblox.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for your answer. And before we let you go, please let us know where we can find out more about what you're doing, your academy, all the interesting stuff you're doing. where we can find that information. Is it a web page, several web pages, social media, wherever you want to lead us to before we take off?
Yes, you can get some news about what we do, what our company do in kumara.com. It's double M. It's like key. Yeah, I cannot spell it very well in English anyway. It's Kumara anyway. I think Rob can put it later on in the podcast description. But me, myself, you can reach out me faster through LinkedIn. I just put I believe my name is Eko Nugroho, Indonesia. You should find me there, or in my Instagram, because I'm practicing to write down daily, mostly in Indonesia, but now I believe we have like translations features in both of the platforms. So I don't think you will find it easily to understand whatever I write through those translation features. And you can always email me through my company. But honestly, for my email, I have very good team as Augie who handle a lot of things faster than me. So reach out anywhere you love, and make sure we will come back to you. So thank you for everything anyway. So that's
Sounds
it.
great. Thank you, Echo. Thank you for sharing all of that, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience, all of what you've been doing, where we can find out more about you, definitely. However, as you now know, and the engagers definitely know, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Engagers, thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast. And I'd like to know, how are you listening to this podcast? If you're using any podcasting app on your mobile, have you rated? Have you followed this podcast? Both are for free. And if you haven't done so, please go ahead and do so, because that helps us a lot to reach more engagers like you to achieve this mission that we have of making learning amazing. If you would like to have instructions to some of the major ones, please go to professorgame.com/iTunes. And of course, before you go on to your next mission, please remember to subscribe or follow for absolutely for free using that favorite podcast app we were talking about just seconds ago, and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.